Howdy, folks. It's Tom, your frugal prepper. I want to cover the 6 laws of gardening in a little 6-part video series. I want to do them in 6 separate videos so we can dive into each of them a little more. Now, these 6 laws aren't something that I invented. These 6 laws come from years of research and work from Dr. Mittleider, and his work's now being carried on by Jim Kennard of the Grow Food or the Food for Everyone Foundation, which is growfood.com. And LDS Prepper really seems to be into Mittleider gardening as well. As I understand it, Dr. Mittleider had some health issues in his early 40s, and basically said that he would shut down a very highly successful business of growing flowers and dedicate his time to teaching and helping people, um, and doing God's work, and became a missionary, and has I believe he's still alive today and has had many wonderful years. But he went all over um, the world and taught starving people how to grow food in some of the worst conditions imaginable. But I want to mostly just cover the 6 laws, and if you want to learn more about these, I will put a link down below to the Mittleider Gardening Course Book, which is a good place to learn more about these 6 laws. Now, these 6 laws apply to any garden. They apply to any plant growing in any soil anywhere in the world. But the Mittleider system is designed, everything about it, to make these 6 laws easy to follow. But even if you're not using the Mittleider method, these are laws that are important, and if you learn them and you follow them, you will have highly productive gardens that grow a lot of food that you can feed your family with. You will spend very little time being a gardener, and you'll hear other gardeners who use all these fancy terms for different kinds of soils and for just like different kinds of everything, and you'll really have no idea what in the world they're talking about, but you'll grow them 3-5 times to 1 every time. That's what I love about this method is, yes, it doesn't use renewable, the nutrients aren't necessarily a renewable resource, right? But really manure and mulch isn't either. I mean, it kind of is, but you have a hard time stockpiling a lot of manure. I can stockpile a lot of fertilizers. For a few $100, I can stockpile 20 years worth. That's a lot. So, and I wanted to also say this is not really from the Mittleider system, but it's just something that I feel and believe is there's a real movement that says, oh, we have to get back to nature. Folks, beans and kale and cabbage and cucumbers and cantaloupe don't grow in nice little neat rows in nature. Gardening is inherently unnatural. If you want to grow in nature and get your food from nature, then you would leave this garden and you would walk back through this field and eat some bugs and some grass. Okay, that would be nature. I want to grow healthy, organic, good food, and a lot of it that I can put back for the winter for my family to eat. And I want to grow it without spending all day every day in the garden because I'm not retired. I have an 8 to 5 job. So the rules here for light are, it's law number 1, let there be light. 95% of the plant comes from photosynthesis. Photosynthesis combines carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen, and it makes a carbohydrate. If you're diabetic and you have to watch your carbohydrates, you'll understand what a carbohydrate is. Okay? It's essentially sugar. Like, everything about a plant is really sugar, or most of it, 95% of it is sugar. Now, I know that seems like crazy because you're like celery has no carbohydrates in it when you eat it, right? As a human, it doesn't. You give that same celery to a cow, it's going to have sugar buzz. Okay, because that fiber in there is cellulose. Cellulose is a sugar. It's such a complex sugar that we can't digest it because we only have one stomach. If we had three more stomachs, we could get a sugar buzz off of celery. Okay, so that very structure of the plant, that the fibers of the plant are sugar and they're made from photosynthesis, and it combines the carbon, the oxygen, and the hydrogen and makes that plant. And you have to have light for that process to happen. So, what plants are happy in the shade? None. Plants need light in order to grow and thrive. Some plants can handle a little less light than others, but all plants need light. That's the basic law. Okay. Um, we want to avoid shade. You want to avoid trees and shrubs, and I spelled shrubs wrong. uh, other plants, and really, buildings, your house, sheds, things like that might block light getting into the garden. Okay. The other thing is we want to plant taller plants to the north and south, or north and east of shorter plants. And we want to also consider how big plants are going to be when they're full grown, and how soon they're going to come out versus the other plant, and what the number of days to maturity are. So we need to do some planning when we plant our garden so that plants don't block each other out. And sometimes you'll make a mistake, and that's fine. The next time you plant those plants, you'll get it right. The other thing is we want to prune plants to allow light down into the centers of the plant. So I've been pruning some tomatoes in this picture to allow the light to get down into the center. These are determinate tomatoes, so they're not just going to grow up this one string with one growing tip. I'll either have to use multiple strings, or I will be staking these eventually. But you need to let that light down into the center of the plant, and you need to stop plants from overcrowding each other, and really get them happy. And the other thing is the way we grow things up strings in Mittleider. And I'll show you that in this picture. So these are some pickling cucumbers. Now these pickling cucumbers have been in the ground just about 3 weeks. And another 10 days will be a month. This went in on May the 29th, and today is June the 19th. So I'm already producing pickles. Just pickle there, pickle there. Now, just to give you an idea, this pickle wasn't there yesterday morning. This is how big it is the next evening. A little over, what was that, 36 hours later? This pickle wasn't here this morning. This is where it is 12, 14 hours later. Well, 12 hours later. Okay? So that's how fast things grow once they start growing in your Mittleider garden. And they're getting everything they need, and we're obeying those 6 laws. So you can see here how we grow up the strings. Okay, it's a little hard to see that the one string goes in and one string goes out here. I can take you to another picture where I'll show you that. And probably you can see here we have the V. One string's going to the top of the T frame, the other string's going to the other side of the T frame. And you can see that here too on these peas. Once these grow up, this maximizes the light that gets down into the peas. It allows air to get between them, gives them a little better spacing by going to opposite sides. And you can kind of see how that hooks to the top probably in this first picture, where you see me standing here, and you see how they're tied onto these wires inside the T-frame, and they run down to another wire at the bottom. And this is to allow the maximum amount of light when we're growing vertically in the garden, to get down to the plants. So the rule here is tall plants to the north and east of short plants. We want to prune our plants regularly to allow light to get into the plants and into the center of the plants. And we want to avoid shade, trees, shrubs, plants, other buildings, things that are going to shield our plants from the sunlight. And in fact, you can see in this picture there is a little bit of a tree over here. And this is late in the evening, however, It's just starting to cast a shadow right here. And I can tell you, these beans in the front of the bed, if you look at a later picture, uh, these beans here aren't quite as productive as the beans a little farther down. Why? Because they get a little shadow over them for a couple hours before the others do. So light is key. You can't always have 100% perfect conditions, but you want to maximize your light to your beds as much as you possibly can. Well, folks, that's it for now. Um, all I can say is everybody be happy and frugal out there. There will be 5 more parts to this video series for the other 5 laws. And if you follow these 5 laws, you can have a productive garden, and you can call yourself a food grower instead of a gardener.